I mean, there's just, you thought you were here and now you're here. There are no captions on the movie. There are no lower thirds or anything that tells you now you're in Germany in 1946. Now you're here. Now you're there. All that's off. You never know what. I never tell you explicitly with words on the screen where you are, yet you know where you are.
Right.
And even if it takes you a second to catch up to it, good. That blurred edge is exactly what I want, because you could be in Nazi Germany, or you could be Trayvon, or you could be you could be in India, stepping into a sewer. The bottom line is we're all experiencing this thing that is uniform across all cultures and times. Right. Someone has to be better than someone else. And the way that looks and how it manifests and how it behaves has all kinds of names that are real. Racism, sexism, Islam, all those things. But at the base of it, it's this really insidious idea that we as human beings must have hierarchy.
Yeah.
Very few cultures that don't. And so if you get to that root, that's underneath all the isms. That's something to solve for. If we can start to solve for that, then maybe the other ones start to have room to dissipate, change, be reshaped. Yeah. That's the core of what I finally got from the book on the third reading.
Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon is a podcast on directing for anybody that's, quite simply, ever watched anything. Visit PeteChatmon.com to get your official podcast merch, hoodies, hats, jackets, mugs, and other swag, and learn more about your host.
All right, folks. Happy New Year, first of all. I hope everybody has been having an amazing holiday season. We are dropping a special episode. As you know, we concluded season 4 earlier in, December? And I had an opportunity to chat over the holiday break with none other than the writer, producer, director, AVA DuVERNAY, and I had a chance to see her film Origin, which is an amazing film that I think everybody should check out as soon as you can. It follows Isabel Wilkerson as she constructs the best-selling book Caste, and also begins to take a look at how we as mankind have gotten to this place where we are with all the isms and whatnot that permeate the world. I know that sounds like a big, kind of heavy, unwieldy topic, but in this film, Ava's found a way to really take these big ideas and anchor them to a hero's journey while meshing history, drama, surreality, and so many things in what I think is her best work to date. So I had a chance to chat with her while I'm here on vacation too. So I hope you enjoy the special episode with writer, producer, director, AVA DuVERNAY.
Roll sound.
Speed.
The interview. Take 1.
So this is a special episode. So we'll just dive right into it.
Okay.
And there's so many places to begin. I will say, and we will get to Origin specifically, I think the film is beautiful. I watched it twice. The first time it's kind of like when you direct, like you get a script and you just kind of want to read it and let it be. And then when it's time to like really absorb it, you start rewatching or rereading. And there are a lot of things which I will talk about when we get to the film a bit more that I think are masterful about it. I think that when I work on things, I try and come up with like one word that is a guiding principle of sorts. And my description of the film and of your filmmaking, I think, would be control, because I think it's sure-footed, very deliberate, and very clear while dealing with something that's very almost nebulous. An idea is kind of nebulous, right? and to go down the road of making a film about an idea requires that kind of control. So we'll come back to that.
Okay.
But yeah, so, look, I ask everybody, what was like the first story that kind of connected to you and made you say or see the power of storytelling?
The power of storytelling. Wow, that's a big one. I just remember loving films really early on. And my sister Gina loves books. She's an actual librarian. And my sister Tara loves experiences. And so she's the head of a museum, the Equal Justice Initiative Museum, the National Lynching Memorial down in Montgomery. And I just always loved movies. And so I remember seeing the first film that I can remember seeing at the movie theater was Grease. And the first film that really moved me and made me say, I love movies was West Side Story on television. And it's interesting that those are both musicals. But, as a young person, the dancing, the singing, all of that just kind of swept me up in the magic of it all. I remember in high school, and still just as a fan of it, never thinking that I would ever make any. I remember in high school going to see Legends of the Fall with a boyfriend. And I remember afterward, I was talking about the film so much, he's like, okay, we like the movie.
What were you talking about? Were you commenting?
The span of time. It was really the way it was put together in chapters and that you saw the maturation of the family. And for whatever reason, I remember thinking that was a huge deal for me to talk about seeing this life that felt real and rooted and complex and all the things. I'm sure, So I remember that conversation, went to eat afterward, and he was annoyed that I was talking about the movie so much. And then I remember in college going to see Mo Better Blues, my freshman year of college, and being like, oh my God, I've never seen anything this sexy, Black, exciting. Of course, I'd seen other Spike Lee films. Of course, I'd seen other films with Black people, but there was something about that I just felt was like extraordinary to me at that time at 18 years old. And so those are some key movie moments and that all affect me in their storytelling in different ways.
Right. And so at any point, so Mo Better is what, 93?
No, I think it had to be closer to like 90, 91. 90? So I know I'd seen Do the Right Thing, but I don't know why Mo Better, because I was in college, I was feeling cute, I was in Westwood, I went to UCLA, going out with friends, feeling really grown up and seeing a grown up movie. So
now I will preface that I do know the answer to some of the questions I ask, but I have to ask them. So
of course. Okay.
So what was it like growing up where you grew up, which is where?
I grew up in Compton, Long Beach, Linwood, Tri-City area. And what was it like? It was a wonderful childhood. I loved and still love home. And it, but yeah, very, very, very Black. And also in my elementary school years, the school that I went to, which was a Catholic school, had many Filipino students. And so it was kind of like a Black, Filipino, Latino vibe. My street was all Black, but we'd put our hands out and we'd all be really the same color brown. It was a beautiful growing up.
Kind of like a Benetton ad a little bit?
Well, no, I think Benetton ad has some white folk in it. I didn't go to school with any white students until I was in high school. So it was a very predominantly of color early childhood.
Were your parents big on movies?
No, my Aunt Denise was big on movies. Fair. So I had an Aunt Denise who was a nurse. She worked at night so she could enjoy life during the day, plays, museums. She's a big book reader and she loved movies. And so she really gave me a love of movies on the bus going from Compton to the Cerritos Mall or the Lakewood Mall to see movies, about a 45-minute to an hour bus ride once a week. If it was a time when she had a car, we'd be on fumes trying to get there. But yeah, I watched a lot of movies with her. And she would do this thing where she'd find the movies starting at the same time. I'd go into one and she'd go into another because she liked to see things that I couldn't see when I was younger. And so we'd meet out at the same time, or she'd make sure she was out before me or whatever the thing was. So It was a ritual.
That's in the days when movies were not 3 hours long and you could reliably exit around the same time.
Around the same time. Facts. Much different than now. And also, you would let your kid go into a movie theater by themselves. I mean, I did a whole bunch of stuff. I was a latchkey kid, so me and my two sisters would walk in the door. I look back now, and it's like, was I 9? Yeah. You walk home from school, you open the door, you clean up, you watch TV, you do your homework. Mom got home. What's wrong with it? That's just was the way it was. Now I think of putting a 9-year-old walking home and walking in the door. It's just not done.
No, it's wild. I mean, I had a key around my neck. I had a key around my neck.
Exactly.
Cold the little like kind of metal balls that you kind of clicked in. I had the key around there. That was 3rd grade.
That's what I'm saying. That made us tough.
Yeah.
But can you imagine your 3rd grader when your baby's in the 3rd grade?
No.
Can you imagine?
No. 10th grade? No. I mean, that's extreme, but no, it's a different time. So when you went to UCLA, what were you focused on? What were you thinking you were going to pursue?
Yeah, I was interested in journalism. So I was an English and African American studies major, and I thought that I wanted to produce the news. So not be on air, but kind of, I like the idea of being able to decide what the news was. Really, that's what it was. And to be out in the field doing stories and traveling the world. And so that's what I thought I would do. So in college, I got this very prestigious internship with CBS News, the evening news, which was a big deal. And I was one of the interns on the O.J. Simpson trial. And after that trial, or after my internship, the trial was still going when it was over, I decided that news wasn't for me. And then it was just really how so many people fall into what they do. What job could you get?
Right.
And it's so a part of how people end up living their lives is what job was available at the time that you were looking for a job. You know what I mean? And
how bad did you need it?
And how bad did you need it? I was graduated from college, and I had the degrees, and I was still interested in news, but someone had told me about publicity, that it was a way of shaping the news, that you were pitching stories and that you were able to kind of craft what these segments were. So I applied for a lot of different publicity positions, all kinds, corporate, sports, municipal. And I got a job at a small studio as an assistant. And the rest is whatever.
The rest is phase 1 of your professional career.
If I would have got that municipal job, I would have been doing PR for the gas company or something. But I didn't. I got the job for the studio. So here we are.
So do you remember, this is an interesting question, but I was having a convo last night with a buddy of mine that's on vacation with us. And we were talking about NYU had career services, right? And so when you were about to graduate and get a job, like they would do like these interviews and they'd record it and they'd say, oh, you know what? You shouldn't be leaning in. That's like the wrong body language to do. And like, make sure you address everybody in the room because you don't know who holds the power because they may not necessarily be revealing it, right?
Right.
How do you remember what your interview was like and like what you did well and what you might have done better at?
Yeah, there were no NYU services or the like. Those are really good tips. No, I didn't have any of that. I remember, just going in and doing my best. I remember making a resume for the first time and really studying that really hard with books. And I remember buying my first little suit. And reading, my mother worked in human resources at Kaiser, so she gave me tips. But certainly no preparation for interviewing for a studio. And now what I know about what people are looking for, I don't even know how I got that job, except someone willing to work for low pay and long hours who seemed enthusiastic probably. But yeah, no. And now, I tell people now so often about job interviews. Now that I have a team at Array and that I hire so many people on my crews, I tell them what I wish I knew at that time, which was the person that you're talking to needs you so badly. They wake up in the morning knowing that they have interviews, hoping that this person, that today they will meet the
Right.
answer to their needs. So
Right.
don't go in afraid. Go in not overconfident, but I could be the answer for you is the vibe. Because
Yeah.
being on the other side so often right now, I know how many times it's like, please just let this person be halfway decent. You know, please let them know something. Like,
Right.
please let them at least have a spark in their eyes or something I feel like I can work with.
Mhm.
And that's a thought in my head so often. And I realize, wow, that's everyone that's interviewing has a need.
Yeah. I mean, this is tangential, but I do this in my, the TV journeyman hustle where you're just trying to get in on all these different things. I'm like, I make it concretely clear by saying like, I would love to direct this episode of your show. And I think about that and I'm like, I bet in 15 interviews over a week,
They're not hearing it. They're not hearing that.
They're not
No.
hearing it. And maybe I shouldn't be putting that out, but
No, but no, I mean, I just think the declaration of interest, of enthusiasm, of energy, of commitment, just that declaration. I know in all the work with Queen Sugar, like, there were some women I just plucked out of, they got a call and they were like, oh, what's going on? There wasn't an interview process because I was curating it differently. But in all the other shows that we've crewed up, we've made eight different series in the last 4 or 5 years, a leaning in, I'm cool, not I could take it or leave it, like someone who you want to hold hands with.
Yeah.
And that's what you're giving. And also you direct everything. So I don't even know why you're even still on the phone with anybody. You should just say, look at my CV and call me.
Hey, we'll see. I don't even know what to do with that. I fumble.
I've called you a few times, Pete. You're not even available. I don't know why you're playing humble. You're packed. You are stacked. You are booked back to back. It's like you and Paris Barkley. I just, at some point you just stop calling because you're not going to get them.
Oh, come on.
I'm going to keep trying though. I'm going to keep trying.
It's come close. Well, the thing, and we'll come back, but like what I've noticed as of late is that not what I've noticed, what I'm doing as of late is not just packing it in. Like in the first few years, you're like, I don't know if they're going to call, you know what I mean? You're like, boom, 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 boom. And then inevitably, as I got into the 5th, 6th year of doing this, it would be like the dope shit that comes up like 3 weeks out. You know what I mean? And like you have to leave that room because you'll pad it with things that are cool, but then like you have a couple things you're like, damn, I wish I would have been available for that,
And you're not the kind of person that breaks relationships. I mean, I've had episodic directors where a dope thing comes or whatever they think it is. And they, there's nothing worse than to pull out 2 weeks or the week before. It's just the height of unprofessionalism. And you've burned a relationship with not just with a lot of people when that happens. So you're right. Even a little bit more room to be choosy.
Yeah. So just getting back to the journey, because I want to get into the film and TV talk too. So small studio, you're doing publicity. Are you finding that telling the story of these films, and I'm going to assume that, was it for films or for filmmakers? Films, right?
Films and back then home videos.
Okay. So like, did you find enjoyment in crafting the narrative for, the people who would come into contact with these materials and hopefully go see the film?
I loved it. I loved publicity. I loved it so much. I still do. I could still be doing it if I didn't fall in love with film. Publicity is like my boyfriend, but film is my husband. I talk to a lot of friends and filmmakers about marketing and publicity. Can't tell you how many. I mean, it's dozens a year of friends who are going into their PR marketing meeting for their project, and it's just like, give me 10 things to say to sound smart. Okay, ask about this. Right. And also working on my own is a big part of the filmmaking process for me, to, craft that poster, get in there with the trailer, get in there with the field campaign, the promotions, the ad buys, all of that stuff is stuff that I've done professionally. I had an agency that did it for a while for the various studios I've worked for and or directed for. And so, like the relationship with Netflix, did 3 different things with them, was one of very much, they know this is what I'm going to do. And so there was never a resistance to it. It was kind of like, yeah, just let her in and let's do it together. And so, I enjoy when it's that kind of collaboration around it. Because for me, that's still a part of the filmmaking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, it is. I mean, it's got to start even earlier these days because you can seed the word on the film or the show or whatever years before it comes out.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can make sure that the representation, the way the film is represented to the public is in the likeness of what you've made. So often you see a trailer and you're like, that movie and that trailer didn't match, or, there's a poster that just doesn't capture it. I think so much with things that are about people in the niches, whether it's women or Black folk or brown folk or queer folk or whatever it is, there's not a fluency in that within studios. And so if it is your film, you need to be able to kind of lean in and define what it is and determine some of that, be self-determined in that. So,
because it's like, it's the home court advantage. All that PR should be like, if you could invite them to your home to experience what this film should be, like you can curate it. And if it doesn't mesh with what's going on in the home, it's like, what is this?
Yeah, exactly. So I think, it's a big part of it. And it's something that I enjoyed then doing for other people and enjoy still now. And also just, I'm a geek. I'll watch other people's campaigns and, my friend Coleman Domingo, we had a nice long conversation right before he was starting his double campaign for Reston and Color Purple. Mm-hmm. And he was just like, I got 2 at the same time. How am I, just fun conversations about, I called a friend once who was promoting a film and was like, when you're on the couch, you have to tell this story and it needs to be this long. You can't go on and eat your couch time with this long ass story. Okay.
Right.
You got to get out. You need to get these 3 points across. Even if they don't ask you, you need to make sure that you don't get off of that couch until you say these 3 things. Even if you're screaming at the end as the music, you got to do it. So that's the fun stuff.
It's such an art to it. So I admire it. For anybody who hasn't watched the Directors on Directors interview with you and Michael Mann, that was great. Watching that. So folks should be familiar with your time working on Collateral and kind of recognizing that this film thing might be something that you want to do. Had that desire been kind of bubbling beneath the surface before you kind of made that? Or it was literally like I feel this now and I'm going to embark on it?
In my memory, it was, I feel it now. It was the first time that I can remember thinking, I can do that. I can do what he's doing. I had been on many sets as a publicist. So I'd been around sets. And I'd seen, I won't say all kinds of directors because predominantly white men directing, but I'd been on sets and publicists are not treated well on sets because people were annoying. We're trying to take people from the AD and the director away from the main acts to do interviews, or there's some strange journalist with us that nobody wants to deal with or whatever it is. And so, but, had used those on-set moments as opportunities to observe just because I always loved film and was fascinated by it. But there was something about being on that set of Collateral that it sparked something different. I think it might have been the cameras because it was very early days of digital cameras.
Right.
And it was just, everything was moving faster and differently. And there was a lot of tension around the digital cameras because it wasn't ease of use that everyone knew how to do it. Although once it got up and running, it was like, this is fantastic. And so there was something there that created a little bit of a sizzle. And then, Michael's intense and the cast was incredible. It's like Tom Cruise and Javier Bardem and Mark Ruffalo and Jada and Jamie. It's like, okay, whoa.
Yeah.
No one knew Javier at the time and Mark Ruffalo wasn't. But for me, Jamie Foxx and Jada Pinkett and Tom Cruise was a big deal. So that film, and they were shooting in areas that I was from, East LA, South Central, Inglewood, like, Black parts of town of LA. So all that together created some kind of magic for me. And I started to think about it, started to take a few classes at UCLA Extension, reading books, and decided to make my first short.
What was the gap in time from that moment on set to that short being in production?
I don't know. That's a good question. I gotta go look that up. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm gonna look that up. Not long.
I think like within a year. Within a year. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe a year.
Yeah. Because that first one, the first time you do it, like the what you don't know can almost be a benefit, right? Like to just keep going in and pursuing it. And, I'm sure you didn't have that much of a budget, but you're like, we can do it.
We can do it.
We can do it.
Yeah. This can't be that hard.
Exactly.
We can do it. We can figure this out.
Maybe a weekend,
Yeah.
So after that short, what was the life of that short? Like, did you run a festival circuit?
Yeah, thank you. What a nice question to think back on these times. I remember, and I'll say to this, and I just thinking about it makes me emotional. I've had a lot of beautiful things happen to me film-wise. A lot of good news over the years of different things that people would see as successful moments. But there's not one that I've experienced that felt as transformative, as wondrous. I'll use wondrous and magical as when I got the acceptance to the Palm Springs Short Film Festival in an envelope that said Palm Springs Short Film Festival with one sheet of paper inside that could have been a rejection or not. The only one that I applied to. And it said, no, there were two. I applied to Sundance and I applied to Palm Springs. And I got Palm Springs. Didn't know that you can't play Sundance if you play Palm Springs. Had no clue.
That's fine print.
It's a fine print. But opened it up and literally it is as if angels sang. I could hear bells and they were like sparkly things. In my memory, I was purely overwhelmed with happiness and pride that something that I'd made had been appreciated by someone else and that I was going to get to see my movie on a big screen. And it doesn't matter, Cannes jury, Academy Award nomination, beautiful things have happened that have been wonderful and I've been happy about, but not that I am dizzy with joy as the Palm Springs Short Film Festival, which was a very nice experience when I actually.
Because it was unexpected and it was needed. You needed that. Like there's a point, right? Where like, I'm sure you would have kept going and done another thing and another thing and another thing, but like.
I don't know if I would have.
You don't know if you would have?
I'm not sure. I know a lot of people who kind of stop because they don't have that external encouragement. I would like to think I would keep going. I'm that kind of person, but this was such an anomaly. I was a publicist. I had a job, like not a job, a business.
Right.
A full own, it was called the DuVERNay agency. My clients were actual studios. Like I had a job, a career that was doing very well. I don't know if I had gotten a bunch of rejections, if I would have kept going. I'm not sure. And
that's actually, that was a bit presumptuous of me. And it made me think of actually this book. I think it was called The First Time I Got Paid for It. A bunch of writers talking about that. Yeah. Talking about the first thing they sold. And I feel like William Goldman's chapter was he had been trying to sell things, and he finally got like a short story published or whatever, but he said like, I knew after that one that I was going to quit. Like if he didn't sell that thing, he was like, I'm done with writing. And I'm like, damn, like the course of this shit can,
it hangs on a whim sometimes.
Yeah.
And you also just never know what conversation that you're having with people, how things, so many moments I think of. I mean, I had the moment last night, I got an email because I'm having a tough time with some stuff with my movie right now. And I got an email that was so, like, it made me weep. The
Mm,
time that you take with people just to encourage or to ask the extra question or to say, I mean, it's just treating each other well in this tough business, being
mhm,
interested in each other,
mhm.
listening a little bit. I can think of many, 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 many times in my career that has helped me over a hump. And so it may not
Yeah.
be Palm Springs Film Festival for you, but sometimes it's the kind word for someone that just makes you say, I can keep
Mhm,
going. Need it.
mhm.
Yeah.
You know, as we're talking, I feel like I'm gonna do a little pivot from how I would normally do this interview because I kind of want people to kind of know the full journey, but I also feel like they can go figure that out.
Yeah,
And
there's a lot of
there-
my full journey out there.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
just stuff that I want to talk about, and
Okay.
I keep clipping myself because I'm like I want to go and bring it back here,
Go
but
with your instincts,
yeah,
Pete.
let's go with the instinct. So, I what what about your journey has made you want to give back so much? And I ask that because a thing that was kind of pivotal for me was that 2015 South by keynote that you gave, right? And
Oh,
you talked about the desperation coat that people have on. And it was funny because, like, at that point, I have been like, the people who listen to this shit know what I've done. It's, Sundance in '01 and then raising money for 2 feature films and then winning Tribeca and doing all stuff and like watching like all my kind of contemporaries and folks after me kind of like, you know, and you're at this point where you're like, I recognize that I was kind of not kind of I was bitter, but I was pushing it down here. And I was like, that desperation coat for me was like, because I never felt I gave that off, but I was like, there's a bitter coat too. Like
same, huh?
you can couch it in all the self-deprecation you want, but you really not couching it, right?
Mm.
And so I found that to be, and so like between that and like Queen Sugar and building out, you know, uh, systems to find diverse crew. Like, what is it about your journey that's made you so committed to that part of what you do?
That's interesting. I remember early on feeling alone
Mm,
and having some tough times with having reached out to people and it not being well received, like you don't want to get the no, you don't want to, and seeing things like groups of filmmakers that seemed like they were having so much fun together. Like
mhm,
Spielberg and Coppola and Scorsese, and they hung out, and De Palma, and they all were,
mm,
you know, sharing films and doing that. And I didn't go to film school, so I didn't ever have that.
mhm,
I never had any. I was it was learning on the run, so I didn't have friends in film school. I didn't get to go to friends screenings or have those kinds of conversations. So a lot of it was very selfish. It's like
uh-huh,
I want to create community around this. I want to have friends who do it. So and the idea of even early on of creating Array, which was a firm. I remember at Sundance I'd gone there for many years as a publicist, so I knew what it was. I wasn't enamored with. I mean, it's extraordinary gathering, but I wasn't. By the time I had a film there, I had been there 7 times working as a
mm,
publicist.
right.
So, I remember when I Will Follow didn't get in, and I was there representing a film because I worked all the way up to middle of nowhere. I was a publicist for other people. I remember saying, "Well, you know what? Let's still do something. I'm making films now and trying to do this on the side. Let's
Mhm,
create." So I did a series of 3 nights of conversations where all the black filmmakers, this is pre-Black House, pre all of that. There's like 10 black people here. Why don't we all have dinner?
yeah.
And so we did that on a series of 3 nights with different combinations of people. I could only afford like 10 to 12 people. We recorded it. And, it was people like Tam Bale Benson and like, like Lisa Cortez, like just whoever was there getting together, having a conversation just about the future of Black film.
Right.
I'm not doing it out of any benevolence. I'm doing like, oh, let's get filmmakers together. Like, let's have a conversation. Let's have relationships and friendships. And so that was so much about what that was about, what Array has been about. That's why I have an open campus with a movie theater, screening room, everything's free. It's just like, there shouldn't be barriers to that kind of sharing. And so it really came out of not feeling that acutely, that there was like not a place like that I fit into. And so the quest to kind of try to create that, I worked on Scandal, was the only episode of television I did before I created Queen Sugar. So my first 2 episodes of television were Scandal and Queen Sugar. And I remember feeling like I need to be around more people like me. Shonda had given me the opportunity to direct on her show, but she was a writer and showrunner. I'm a writer-director. And so I really became interested in, well, what does that look like, writer-directors? And could I put together a group of women who are writers-directors, which is a lot of what Queen Sugar was. People who come from the indie space, right? Which is a different trajectory than some others. And that was what that whole Queen Sugar crew was at the beginning. And so it became like a tribe of people who did a certain kind of thing. Anyway, long answer. That's why.
What was it like doing that first episode of TV, having come from, at that point you had done you had done 2 features, right? By 2013, I think that was, not to mention a documentary like that. It's such a different, medium doing TV. Like, what was that like for you?
It was terrifying and I cried. It was the first time I'd ever cried on set. I had the presence of mind to walk away. There were a couple of folk I ran into that were not kind it was a beautiful show.
Crew members?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crew members. It was a beautiful show run by Shonda, a man named Tom Verica, who, was just so incredibly kind to me. Such a great person, but he couldn't be there every minute, And it's the kinds of things that some of the guys do when they can to a young new filmmaker, and the kinds of things that they say. And I was so unprepared for it because I had created my own little world up to that point, self-taught, I'd made 2 independent films for literally under $250,000. I'd made a documentary. I'd traveled the festival circuit. I was releasing my own films. I was feeling and by the time I got Scandal, I had won Sundance as best director. So I'm thinking, okay,
it would be open arms, right?
That would be open arms with their, that respect. But I was dealing in a completely different world than the real world. The real world of dealing with, folks who have a polish, I guess, that I didn't have. And so I think, so I remember stepping away and just feeling so low that day and finishing it up and being very proud of that work. I love that episode. But that was really something that fueled me with Queen Sugar is and there's nothing that she could even have done because I didn't even tell anybody. Right. But as I created Queen Sugar, not tolerated. Like, it's not going to happen that any woman that steps foot on that set feels like anyone is not there to serve her vision. That's what everybody's there for. Right. So very clearly not telling her no. Well, now we might not do that crazy idea. Right. She's got to get to it. You know what I mean? On her, I don't want anybody crying. I don't want anyone feeling that low on that set that they are feeling demoralized. And that everyone, every grip, everyone knows. And it became a thing. Queen Sugar was the show with the 2 women directors, and you better treat them right. And and making sure that the women knew that they had an open door to me or Paul Garnes or Cheryl Miller, who were running the show, to be able to say, well, this happened, which very rarely did because people were there knowing what we were all there to do. And so, one informed the other. And so it was valuable. It's just a lesson of that hard thing you go through, it is there for you. You know, it's not something bad happening to you. It's something happening for you. Find what it is and make it work.
Right. And I know, gosh, I probably know 80% of the directors that have come through Queen Sugar. And it was such an incredible jumping off point, to get the mechanics of TV in your blood, stories that are, not being told, environment that fosters, collaboration. Like, you really do need that. And it's great to have that before you go out into the world. And, maybe you won't be guaranteed it everywhere else you go, but to have that, as a
have a
baseline.
little bit of a cushion. Yeah.
Yeah.
I jumped straight from my own indie films where I was shooting with one camera into Scandal with cranes and 2 cams and like, wait, what's, I had like 2 days with the jib on Middle of Nowhere. I remember the jib, I was like, it's moving. Oh my gosh, it goes up and down. Like literally now on Scandal, I'm like shooting at full on airports with crowd control and da-da-da. And it's just like, wait. Let me get my bearings and like a formidable cast and like a hit show. And so, the idea of, I would even say on Sugar, when I talked to women before, I was like, they're going from indie. I knew exactly what most of them were coming from. We made a film with what you could.
Right.
When I remember we'd be in the prep meetings, I'm like, okay, you have 3 crane days. People's eyes would get like, I got 3 crane days. Or there's a car shot. So, we're going to have to use techno crane. What? I get to play with, like, just say, play with the toys. Get the, multiple costume changes in a day. An actual costume designer. You made indies. An actual department heads who know their job. Like, you're not opening a bag of Doritos and putting it on the, like, real crafty with a real truck. Actual medic, not a box of Band-Aids. Like, all of the things that you get from a show is new, and you're responsible for this, and you're coming into a story that, you're the steward of a story for a very short time, and everyone else there knows more about it than you. And so how do you go in there and how do you function? How do you thrive? So I have some tricks of the trade that I've learned from those that I think is helpful. I don't do episodic for other people, but I've had a lot of people do episodic for me, and you see, the ways in which you can thrive within it.
I'm director Maureen K. Jola Evans, and you're watching Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon.
Transitions, a director's journey and motivational handbook, is Pete Chatmon's book from Michael Weezy Productions. The reviews are in. Greg Berlanti says, "There's a reason why everyone who works with Pete falls in love with his work. The lessons he imparts here are invaluable. Do yourself a favor and read it cover to cover." From Sarah Gamble, Pete's sharing gold nuggets that will spare you a ton of wasted time and help you channel your drive, talent, and ambition in the most productive way. And from Jesse Williams, this business has everything to do with preparation and expectations. Transitions grounds lessons in reality while empowering our artistry to run free. Not an easy balance to execute. Transitions, a director's journey and motivational handbook, is available on Amazon and anywhere else you get your books. Don't forget about your mom and pop shops, people.
So let's get into origin. Now, what brought you to the book and to the idea of turning it into a film?
The book just intrigued me because I didn't really understand it fully. And so I spent more time with it than I usually would with most books. I ended up reading it 3 times before I approached Isabel Wilkerson about possibly adapting it, because I needed to understand the concept. And the first time reading it, I got it surface, but I didn't really get it. Like, I got some of the choice phrases you could say, but I didn't truly understand that. And that, hadn't happened to me often, where I needed more. There was something that kept drawing me to the book. And then in the middle of the second time reading it, I started to think, how would one make this? And then read it again, just really searching for the things I needed to create the screenplay. Because it's a nonfiction book. So there's not a beginning, middle, and end that's character-based, and it's not plot-based. So if you're taking a set of facts and anecdotes and you're trying to create a propulsive narrative that's a feature film, well, and I knew I didn't want to make it a doc, then who do I follow and how does that work? At one point I was thinking doing it like Crash, like little this story and that story, but it just wasn't enough, because in the book it's just quick anecdotes that illuminate moments in history. So, when I came upon the idea of having the author drive us through the information, then it became pretty exciting to try to do, and was a grand experiment.
Did you end up spending time with her personally to get a sense of this character that you would be following?
It was during COVID when I wrote it, so it was a lot of Zooms. I had the occasion to be around her a couple of times, and hours long conversation one day, and kind of hanging out to get a sense of the personal movements. But even with Selma, I really rejected the idea of trying to, like, we can get into mimicry when you're trying to be like that person. I'm not trying to be like her. I want to kind of embody a person as opposed to be. So yeah, no, a lot of Zooms, hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of Zooms, really to be taught. She was teaching me about cast. If I'm going to pass it on to someone else, I had to understand it. And, the joy of reading a book and being able to ask the author every question you have about it over a 2-year period. Right. And then also, everything that's in the film that's her personal story is not in the book. So the losses that she experienced, the drive that she, had to continue on, what she was going through in different times, was all part of the interview process.
Right.
Yeah.
So did you have any particular, I'm just kind of getting into the mind of, in your mind, and I'm trying to wonder what the process was like making the film. Like, did you have any particular inspirations that you were sharing with your department heads as you were getting this thing moving through prep, so they could kind of begin to see what you were envisioning in style and tone, or even just whatever little pieces that you might get from something?
Yeah, I'll say hands down, the experience of making Origin was the most enjoyable, happiest time I've ever had making anything. I was happy every day. And I mean, who says that? I was every day, I was overjoyed and bubbling with a sense of the promise of the film, the possibility of the film, the people that I was around. There was no studio. We had the money, a certain finite amount of money, and we were charged with making a film that was my vision for that amount of money. Who gets that?
Right.
And I've been through it, so I know people don't get it. Even when I was using my own money to make my early films for $50,000, $250,000, didn't know what I was doing. So now I have the experience. I have a story that I'm passionate about. I have, the budget that I can get it done for without the breathing down my neck and the having to justify everything. And I really felt the most free, which made me feel the most joy. And not to say that you can't make beautiful things. I like everything that I've made very much. I love it within the limits of the studio structure. But imagine those are gone. And every day you wake up and you're the captain of your destiny and you don't have to justify anything. There's moments in the film that would not have made it through a studio process.
Like what? What do you think?
Why all of a sudden in a film that's just, first of all, the script wouldn't have passed muster. You've got historical, you've got contemporary, you've got surreality, right? So you've got, sometimes you're in the deep, you're in India, rural India, contemporary. You're in rural India, the feudal times. You are in the segregated South. You're in Nazi Germany. You're on a slave ship. You're in the modern coffee shop with the lady who made the thing. She's at the Black Family Reunion with her friend right now. And then all of a sudden, wait, is this a dream? Why are these leaves falling in the room? You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
It's not working. They're not
Right.
gonna say yes to this. Yeah,
Right.
for me anyway. They might say yes to
Yeah.
somebody else,
It's
but they're not
interesting
gonna.
because that makes me think, like, I'm sure there's something comparable that's out there where, you know, the studios have had no problem making it, that's super challenging. I mean, there's a lot of films I've seen where I'm like, what was that? I don't even know if I understood what was happening there.
But who made it? Is the
Yeah,
question.
exactly. There you
Who
go.
is allowed to express? Who is allowed the freedom within that studio space? Who has the power to
Right.
say what they will and won't do? I don't.
Hmm.
And so in order to
Hmm.
get that, I had to give it to myself. And,
Right.
with the help of, Paul Garnes and Regina Miller and Tulane Jones and the folks that are just around us, create the conditions that we wanted. And so to
Right.
your question, every day was joyous. And, the way I worked was, I was really clear that I wanted to shoot on 16. I had asked to shoot on 16 many productions before working for
Right.
studios. And for all kinds of reasons, not cost prohibitive, time prohibitive, workflow prohibitive, let's not, right?
Hmm.
So that was one of the first things I did. And my cinematographer, Matt Lloyd, just happens to be very adept and very enamored with and very knowledgeable about those film formats. So 16 was something that he embraced. And, I wanted to have one singular look for all of the time periods. So we're in 7 different time periods. We span hundreds of years, over 400 years. And we shot in 37 days in 3 continents.
Yeah.
And all of that is held by 16 with the same color grade.
Right.
There's
Well, in
no
fact,
special sepia tone for the Holocaust. There's no, this is
right.
black and white. There's no DSAT on this or whatever. Same, graded by Tom Poole, the great. And literally the idea is there's a sameness to this idea of caste, which undergirds the foundation for what we experience. So we shouldn't be shifting in color and grade and grain as we're moving around.
Right.
I want it to flow from one time period, one place, one generation to another, all feeling like the same story, because it is. And
Right.
16 really allowed us to do that. So those are the early references, specifically a film called Carol, which has nothing to do with Todd Haynes' film, has nothing to do with anything that we were talking about subject-wise, but it just looks like butter. Like you actually just want to slather it on your face and just like drench yourself in Carol, the movie. And so that was an early reference. Beyond that, Schindler's and just the handling of weighty subject matter. When you break down that screenplay, it's a really fascinating screenplay because it is not a standard 3-act structure. It looks like it is, it plays like it is, but when you really look at it, it is doing some really interesting things with time and how the stories are coming in and out. You have 2 stories running at the same time. The story of the Holocaust and then the story of Schindler. And it's really and so it helped me in thinking about, okay, the story of caste and the story of Isabel, and gave me something to tether onto. And then just generally, the way I work is I work with an idea about an anchor image. So I don't like to storyboard, and I don't do a whole bunch of references. Like there's one thing that I'm trying to get from each scene every time we're like, so when I'm shot listing, I'm trying to get to this one thing. This visually is the hands. This visually is I need to be like this and feel the whole thing. This is like whatever the anchor image that I'm going after, and I'll build the shot list around that key thing.
And you're talking about like this specific shot is really, it tells it is what the scene is really about. It's this shot.
If I don't get anything else but this shot and the wide, I can make it happen. You know what I mean? If it all falls apart and they shut us down right now, I'm getting that wide and then I'm going in for that.
See, that's that indie thing that I'm like, it's a superpower though, right? Like where you're like, somebody, they got to go home early or we lost a generator. All right, let's get this other 2 shots and we're good. Like it'll cut.
And we're good. And I also am so fortunate because I became so close to I've had the same editor for all of these years, so close to my editor, Spencer Averick. And in my early films, I was not good at coverage because I had no time. So and I could see what that did. I sat there with him every day. Like my favorite part of the process is the editing. So very quickly I was able to edit in my head and no, he'll never use that. We need this. I just gotta get the stuff that's gonna cut the scene. And so for me, I'm cutting in my head. So as I'm watching a performance, I'll take that. We didn't get that line. I'll get it from over here. Great. Let me move here. And I'm putting it together as I go. So that's why I don't really do traditional shot list. I really don't. Because I'm going for that. The main tools, right? Why to get you warmed up, go in for my anchor image, and then I'm going to start building around that because there's no way to predict what the performance is going to be. So your shot list that you spend time on, I know the crane is going to come over the thing. We need to, get permit this, and I'm doing this, or I need a special circular dot, whatever. But most of the time, that embeds itself in the anchor image idea. And everything else, I'm building based on. I mean, there was a thing that Anjanou did, and we had time, to just go in and really drench it down, which was rare. I was like, what could she do better than what she? I'm never going to cut away from that performance. It's just going to be on the face. We're wasting time. I'll get it one more time for safety, and then we're out of here because she's just stunning. She gave you everything you wanted, and there was no one else in the scene to cut to. What am I getting? Hands, a cup, the tree outside? Like, let's call it a day and keep it moving. And so I like to craft it, prep enough so that I can be more free on the day is the hope.
So I'm going to ask you about your transitions, right? Because I felt you said there are 7 different time periods that that are interwoven, right? And I love the single format kind of look for everything because it, like you said, it does say that this is all one thing. But I made it on my second watching. I made a couple notes on the transitions that I was really digging. So the photo in the museum that morphs, then it cuts to them reviewing the minutes in that conference room. And then it cuts to the conference room in 1934, where they discuss the Jim Crow laws as a jumping off point for what the Nazis did. And then you cut, that was dope. And then you cut to the characters in the cotton field. It's like, it's all part of the same narrative. And even like, it opens up with Trayvon Martin, and we all know how that played out. But you don't play it out visually or within the story until we're at the concentration camp and the murder happens there. And I was like, it's making these all of the same, I don't want to say design, that's not the word I'm looking for, but it's all the same shit, right? Like, and when Isabel's on the phone to Marion on her deathbed, and then those 2 birds, there's one bird, and then another bird meets it, and they fly off screen left. And it's funny because I was like, well, is that her joining her mother, or is that because she says you'll walk with me, and I'll meet you one day or something, or is that her wanting to join her in the future someday? Yeah, but like
it's whatever you want it to be. It's. You like those 2?
I think, but I feel like I asked you about that because I feel like with all of the movement between scenes and time, were those kind of written in, or were those discovered on the day?
Yeah, well, thank you for that. The birds were shooting the sky, and it happened. And I remember thinking, oh, wow, that's beautiful, and really forgetting about it. And it was Spencer Averick who found it. My editor found it. I was like, we should use this piece somewhere. Those were Indian birds. So we were in India. We got those birds. But that wasn't supposed to be the end of that scene. And that's just something that happened, and keeping your eyes open and being prepared for the unexpected. The piece that you're talking about in the museum was so intricate. She had to go to that picture. Then I'm inside of her looking at minutes from what she saw in the picture, and then a match cut to I think it's a page turn or something.
Yeah, it's a page turn.
The guy does the same one. And so all that is planned. And there were a couple of other ones like that. the one where you're in Nazi Germany and you pull out to reveal that what you've been watching is a picture and it's on the screen of the lecture she's giving. There were a couple things like that, but then it got a little wonky and I had to allow myself to say, it's not always going to be that intricate. Because
Mhm.
I found myself getting into like spending way too much time on these clever transitions. Like there's
Mhm.
one where she's in the bathtub and she's reading a book and then you're inside the book.
Right.
And I had to give myself permission, like they don't all have to be pulling out of the thing and the morphine and the thing. Some of it is just, oh, we found these birds. We need
Mhm.
something to after that moment of mourning. I needed to take a breath to get to the next piece, the next activity. And what could we contemplate on? Let's do something that people can fill in the gap based on their experience of what that is. So that's
Right.
exactly what the birds were. And then also just hard cuts. I mean, there's just, you thought you were here and now you're here. There are no captions on the movie. There are no lower
Right.
thirds or anything that tells you now you're in Germany in 1946. Now you're here. Now you're there. All that's off. You never know what I never tell you explicitly with words on the screen where you
Right.
are, yet you know where you are.
Right.
And even if it takes you a second to catch up to it, good. That blurred edge is exactly what I want because you could be in Nazi Germany or you could be Trayvon or
Mhm.
you could be in India, stepping into a sewer. The
Right.
bottom line is we're all experiencing this thing that is uniform across all cultures and times.
Right.
Someone has to be better than someone else. And the way that looks and how it manifests and how it behaves has all kinds of names that are real.
Right.
Racism, sexism, Islamophobia, all those things. But at the base of it, it's this really insidious idea that
Mm.
we as human beings must have hierarchy.
Yeah.
Very few cultures that don't. And
Yeah.
so if you get to that root, that's underneath all the isms. That's something to solve for. If we can start to solve for that, then maybe the other ones start to have room to dissipate, change, be reshaped.
Yeah.
That's the core of what I finally got from the book on the third reading.
Did you ever read *Sapiens*?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm reading that now, and there
I
are
know
parts
someone
of
trying to
it.
make that into a movie. Can you
Wow.
believe it? I
Man.
know.
That's gonna be okay. But like,
Yeah.
but the whole thing of like, I think they were talking about like chimpanzees never would be in bands larger than 150. They just
Mm.
naturally couldn't maintain order
Mm.
after when they got to 151 chimps for whatever reason. And the only thing, and as humans, as Homo sapiens, what we've found out is that, if we create these imagined realities and we use stories and we use mythology or whatever, that is the way that we can take large groups and anchor them to a society that works, right? Because
Right.
money's not real, yeah, don't write in religion's not real. Like none, you know what I mean? Like none of these
Right.
things are like real, right? And it's interesting that, the larger groups are always going to try and differentiate themselves and gain that leverage and make someone else, pay for what they want. And it's a shame. It's kind of disheartening. You know what I mean? Like as you read these books, but
But an
it's
awareness of it, I think,
yeah,
it takes it from disheartening to an awareness and an intelligence about what is going on around you so that the things that are not working don't feel random and against you, but you understand that you're inside of a system, right?
Mhm.
It's performing this way for anyone at these
Yeah,
different levels. And that takes it out of a personal, isolated, and it's into we are inside of this, I don't
right.
know, matrix that performs this way. And
Uh-huh.
I can go along that with that system, or I can break it, right? By even knowing that it's happening.
Mhm.
And that's what fascinated me about Cast. I
Yeah,
can go even beyond the isms that are inherent in my identity, right? And I can look at more root causes of why those exist, as opposed to just treating the surface. I could treat the surface with an awareness of what the real wound is, what the real disease is. And that just gives me more, all those things you name, religion, race, all those things are used as organizing principles. You say they're not real, they're organizing principles, right? Same. That people hold on to anchor themselves, money, all of those things.
Right.
But the idea that, and the idea of caste is the same. It's a way to organize our thoughts around a lot of what we encounter. So that's really what I wanted to share. And, the joy of making the film was figuring out every day how to put that into a movie with a character, and how to do it on a certain budget, with a crew of people who are along for the ride. We're like, okay, this morning I remember the day was split. It was a scene on the slave ship. We had it in the same warehouse built, the slave ship, and we had a half shell of an airplane. That scene got cut. Poor Paul Garnish, my producer, was just like, I got to think about how much that cost. Let's just keep it moving. Remember the day I had to go to him and say, so Spencer and I did some cutting today. He's like, oh yeah? It's like, I think we're not going to use the plane. Great. But that was on the same day, a contemporary scene on a plane and the slave ship. When you're indie, you're going that fast.
Yeah.
And the crew, having to swing from one to the other. And that was happening on any given day. In India, we'd be doing stuff that was feudal India. We'd be doing stuff that was contemporary India. And so just to say, being around people who were up for it, they didn't know what they were walking into that day, but they were up for what it was and what we were trying to convey. And, and we didn't have to call in. I don't think most people realize that when you're shooting an episode of television, or everyone might not know, the producer's getting calls every 2 hours. When the first shot goes off, a report goes into the studio, right? Most directors know that. Some of them don't. But it's like, ma'am, you are an hour and 50 minutes behind your first shot call. What? It's your shot call? What's going on? We got to just get the first shot off. Even if you are shooting.
Shoot a close-up.
The plant. But close-up. If everything's not ready, the shoes aren't here, shoot the hand, shoot something, get your first shot off, go, get it going. Now, the person at the studio who's waiting, they've moved on to another show, right? Right. Your clock is ticking unless your first shot. Like those kinds of calls constantly coming in. The lunch report, the mid-morning report, all that stuff that's coming to the producer. We didn't have to do it. We just got to focus on expressing ourselves. It's like, go figure. What the heck
That's
is
beautiful.
This? It was so beautiful.
It was like 2000. It was like the short film you made.
Like the Palm Springs Film Festival. Exactly.
What do you, this is kind of a two-part question. Going into the film as a director, was there anything that you were like particularly focused on, flexing, a creative muscle you were looking to improve on? And then looking back at it, what are you most proud of as a director?
Oh, those are nice questions. Muscle to improve, to flex, not really. I think, the TV work has helped me so much in really exercising muscles and I think that's why TV is so important and so beautiful, is that, people like, that are doing even 4 episodes a year, they're shooting more than the feature director.
Yeah.
Right? You shoot, you're out there, you're exercising it, you're honing it, and you're working with different kinds of actors, and you're just, you're in a vibe. And so the years of taking a break and doing TV, even when they see us, that pace, that, I felt very prepared on that side. The thing I wanted to learn was to shoot on film. I hadn't shot on film. That's a completely different way of shooting. I like to roll. I don't want everyone rushing in when I'm giving my adjustments. Like, I do it on the roll, right? So still rolling. So they've said the last word of the script. We've hung there. The actor's like, ooh, is she going to call it? Still rolling, I'll say. I'll go in, give my adjustment. We come right back out. As soon as I say cut, everybody's rushing in.
Exactly.
But I'm on digital. This is nothing but X's and O's. I'm going to hold the sacred space of the set and get this next thing. I do it a lot. Can't do that on film. They're like, ma'am, you have 30 more seconds of frame.
Right.
Like, But she just got started. She just getting, nope, roll out. I mean, I was the first week, Pete, I rolled out. They were like, she's a rollout queen. I'm taking it to the nth degree and I'm missing stuff.
Right.
So Matt came up with a system because we had 2 cameras where they'd start late.
Right.
And they had signals that signals to me because there's no monitor. Like I can't look through the monitor.
That's great though. So you're probably right there with the camera, right? Like you're as close to as you
right
can
there
be.
with I'm watching it with my eye. So I'm not looking at monitors because what I'm looking at on a monitor is not what's in the camera. So because a film camera can't be connected to a monitor. So I'm looking at a proxy digital on top of the thing. I was like, I don't want this.
Right.
This is not what I'm going to see in dailies. I don't need that. I just had to adjust my practice to I'm watching it with my eye, but still that doesn't tell me exactly what the frame is, how it's feeling, what comes in. So I'm blind until dailies. This is the thing I took comfort in. Everybody shot that way up until 2 days ago when digital, you know what I mean? Like you're looking at the films that you love the most. They were made this way. Get a grip. You can do it.
And definitely were like, you got it? They like, yeah, I got it. All right, cool. Moving on. Like, I got it.
You better have it, brother, because if you don't, we ain't got it, And with digital, you have that. I know we got it because I saw it. This is, I know we got it because he told me we did, and I trust him and her. And that is a different level of working than I had ever done. And so, but it created a crispy vibe. It created kind of like a renegade, rebellious feel that sounds funny to probably people who shot on a lot of film. But for me, instead of flexing a muscle, I was trying to build a muscle. And so I was really trying to build that. And then the other one was what I felt proudest of.
Yeah, looking back, coming out of the production and post and looking back at this finished thing, which so often is a little different from what we imagined, I assume, right?
Yeah.
Like, what do you look back at and say, I did that.
Well, as a writer, director, and producer, it's all different things. In the writing of it, I remember never feeling, there were times where I felt a little daunted with what I'd taken on. And this structure of everything moving around, and it's in the script where I'm jumping around. There were people early on who read it who were just like, I'm not sure this is going to work. So as a writer, I'm thrilled that it worked. What I saw in my head as I'm writing is in the film and works, although untraditional, although to the question of who's the antagonist, who's the villain.
Right.
There is one.
The world is the villain.
Everyone, we are the villain, right?
Yeah.
What is the act 2 break? What's your midpoint? What's like all those usual screenwriting things that I just said, I'm just going to do it a different way. The writer is proud that those worked and that I tried it. And in the producerially, 3 continents in 37 days without a studio on film that says it all there. And directorially, I would say the performances. I would say, working with those actors, particularly Aunjanue Ellis-Taylor, who is at a level that's almost otherworldly, to really, as a director who really likes to be close with the actor. Like, this is your performance and I'm your best friend. I am going to, if you need me, I am here. I see something, I'm going to tell you. Sometimes I know when to let you try it, but I am there with you. I'm not going to let you fall. This is what I'm here for, right? This is yours, and I am your Flavor Flav. You're Chuck D. I'm Flavor Flav. This is what I'm here for.
Right.
And I'm hyping you up, but I'm also going to tell you when it's a little, but with Aunjanue, it's different. She is to learn how to, she is a soloist, but a collaborator. She so wants to give me or her directors what the director wants. But when she thinks, when she knows what it is, let me take the ball and go do it. And, and so that just giving her room, it's just an actor that is very different than any that I worked with before. And I'd worked with her before. I was like, were you this way when they see us? She was like, I was trying to be. You were real close, but I was trying to be. But, she was the lead in this. And I just wanted her to feel fully empowered in the way that she wanted to work, not the way that I wanted to work.
Right.
And so I'm proud of being able to give her what she needed, give everyone what I believed they needed or what they asked for. And that's a juggling act when you've got a large cast.
Oh yeah. Is there anything about the film that you want to share or talk about that, maybe you haven't put out yet or had a chance to expound upon?
So many things about it's interesting because I occupying these three different roles as writer, producer, director, and when I say producer, there wasn't a large producing team. It was me and Paul Garnes every day making these decisions about how we were moving around. I would just say it was the first time that there was a real cohesiveness between all of those in film. I'd always had it on Queen Sugar, the rewrites, the production decisions. I wasn't actively directing. So no, that wasn't, and actually like all three disciplines that came together was something that was just an extraordinary experience. And there's so many stories about when the writer would take the lead or, the producer in me is trying to figure it out for the money. And the writer's like, I just rewrite it. Just give me 2 minutes. Or we can cut that. We don't need it. Wait, we can cut it, or, the director in me saying, let's just, I just had like all these three different people and roles in my head. And somehow they came together in a way that I'd never experienced. And it was addictive. I really don't know what I'm doing next for the first time. I don't know what I'm doing next because how do you concoct an experience that is of equal, I don't know, joy, equal complexity, equal I got a script the other day and I was like,
this is not, you're not announcing your retirement though.
I'm not announcing my retirement. I'm announcing I think what will be a slower process. Like my output has been very frequent.
Yeah.
And, whether it's television, commercials, music video, movies, limited series, docs, I'm constantly making something. I've never not been in production. My office, folks that work at Array say, how many times do they say she can't do it? She's in production. It's constantly because I'm always in production for the last decade and a half. So this is the first time where when the film comes out and is finished with its run, I'm not prepping something else or I'm not on post on something. And I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to enjoy it.
I have a feeling you're going to find something to do with that time.
I do too. And I'm looking forward to it.
Well, this is the martini question here. And, I have a little grab bag of them, but I feel like I'd like to know your answer to this one. Someone were to make a project about your life or you, would it be, okay, first, who is starring as AVA DuVERNAY? Who's directing it? It could be a film, it could be a series, your choice. It could be a limited series. And what genre?
First of all, I wanted to hear the end of your question before I said I absolutely cannot answer this because I just was for kids. Wanted to see where it goes. No clue. Will never happen, but it's a fun exercise. No clue. Who would direct it? I don't know. I have no idea. The people that come to mind, they're like women who made Queen Sugar. There's some people there who I've gotten to know. Like maybe right in this moment, I would say Victoria Mahoney. She's a dear, dear sister friend to me and knows me really, really well. A close personal friend and a wonderful director. So maybe her. And I know she loves me and she's not going to put nothing crazy in there. But she'll also get to the nitty gritty. And then who would play me? No clue. I don't even know. I can't say that because then I'm giving preference to actors and I deal with too many of them.
It would be a nationwide casting call.
A new person that you've never met. Exactly, yes. Pete. Thank you, Pete. An ingenue not Ingenue Ellis, an ingenue that you've never met who is going to be fantastic. And it would definitely be a drama because I am the most unfunny person you've ever met. So it would be a deep drama, not a dark drama, like a nice adult drama.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. Yes. And hopefully that last scene will be me in my late 90s, spry and still calling action and cut and enjoying myself and happy and plump and satisfied. And that's the last scene. Like, can that be the last scene in a movie? Happiness? Can it just be like
Yeah.
a life well lived? I would like that.
And then in tribute to your indie filmmaking days, it'll be a jib going up to about 10 feet, you know.
If that. Exactly.
Well, this has been an absolute pleasure. I appreciate you taking the time during this holiday break to sit down with me. You know, you've been someone I've admired from the early times. I tell the story too. I remember one time I went to email you back on Facebook, and it was when like whatever your prior correspondence was would pop up, like when you send a message, and you had congratulated me on winning Tribeca All Access in '08. And I was like, man, I didn't even remember that, but like you always had your hand on the pulse of what was going on. And so I'm wishing the best for Origin, for this film, for you, and whatever your next project may be. You know, don't start working on it till 2025.
Okay, I like that.
Take a break.
I'm going to try, brother. Thank you for just being a light to us. And I think this is such a beautiful forum that you've created, and I'm glad to have a little conversation with you. So thanks for taking time for me.
Thank you. What's up, people? This is Pete Chatmon. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter via @PeteChatmon. Follow the pod on IG via @Let'sShootWithPeteChatmon, and hit up our mailbag with questions, suggestions, or hey, donations if you're feeling like it, via let'sshootwithpetechatmon@gmail.com. And just in case you need to know how to spell it, that's Pete with the last name Chatmon. Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon is produced and edited by the multi-talented cut creator Tristan Nash, assistant produced by the young mogul Jada George, and features the wonderfully gifted Kelly McCreary as our announcer. It's written by yours truly, but I mostly come up with these questions on the fly, which you've probably noticed. Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon is sponsored by Sweat Equity, so go ahead and get your podcast swag via PeteChatmon.com and leave a review on iTunes if so inclined. That shit matters. All right, y'all. That was our chat with AVA DuVERNAY on Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon, discussing her new film, Origin, for which she wrote the script, directed, and also served as a producer. Lovely film. I've seen it 2 times. I'm urging everybody to go check it out as soon as you can and tell a friend. That's what we do. It's an important film, and I'm really excited to have had an opportunity to chat about what went into making it, and more specifically about Ava's journey to today. So as always, y'all, stay safe, spread love, and keep creating. And stay tuned for more information on when we'll drop season 5 of the podcast. Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon.